Hey folks, Raging Poo here with a new Magic the Gathering video. I know it's been a while since I've made one, but I played a match recently that I really just wanted to showcase. And this is for the Duel Commander format, and there's a pretty defined meta. And I've been trying to go off meta and try to see if I can take on the top decks with something that's a brew, something that's completely different than what everyone else is doing. And this is what I came up with. This is the Mimeoplasm. And the goal of this deck is to put a giant creature into play quickly, and hopefully the opponent cannot deal with the threats that I'm throwing at them. I can kind of go over the top of some of the small ball, grindier strategies. And that's what this deck does. I may do a deck tech and break down exactly what's going on here at some point, but for the most part, I just want to showcase this match that I played. So let's get into it. So here we have the top deck in the format, Slimefoot and Squee. At first I didn't quite understand why this card was that great, but after playing with it a bit and just seeing its play patterns and how it operates, I understand quite well how good this deck is. And basically it just checks a lot of boxes. It's good against removal, it has recursion, it's aggressive, it just does a lot of the things that you want to do in Duel Commander. And I had a hand versus this deck that is just insane. I can go Dark Ritual, Buried Alive, and then turn 2 Exhume whatever I want. It's a very strong hand. This deck is very powerful, but it needs very specific draws in order to stop what I'm doing. Basically, it needs a turn 1 Thoughtseize, or in this case, I'm on the play, so and I have 2 Animate spells, so I'm not even sure if Thoughtseize would even be good here. So this is more or less the nut draw probably in this matchup. So let's see how the game plays out. I do exactly what I said, which is Dark Ritual, Buried Alive, and the 3 creatures that I choose to get are Gaia's Revenge, Void Winnower, and Primeval Titan. With the idea being that if I get any of these into play, they're all very strong, but Mimeoplasm in particular is very good with Gaia's Revenge, and I can put counters of this thing on it, which makes a 19 power haste creature that can only be targeted by green spells. Pretty powerful, but that's not my immediate plan. I got Prime Time so that I can ramp into my commander more easily and provide selection along the way. And he starts with turn 1 Arborel, which is par for the course for this kind of deck. Normally what he wants to do is play Slimefoot and Squee as early as possible, and then set up different various value engines like Skull Clamp and etc. There's a lot of different ones to generate value moving forward. But I plan to go completely over the top of that. So I get Primeval Titan, I search up a couple of Surveil lands, I believe, just for a little bit more selection. See if we can get these windows right. It always wants to jump around wherever it wants. I like it in a certain spot. Alright, there we go. And I Surveil Titania and Stinkweed Imp. Was kind of hoping to find another land there so I could just slam Mimeoplasm next turn. Still digging for a land. One of the things that I could have done there is get Lake of the Dead and a swamp, but I don't have another swamp, so I could just cast this Archon pretty quickly if I used Lake of the Dead, but that line was not available to me, and I don't believe I dredged the Stinkweed up here, and I did not draw a land. But it's not the end of the world. I'm just going to fuel my graveyard a little bit more with a Stitcher Supplier, and then smash with my Prime Time. And again, now I could do the Lake of the Dead thing, but I decided to potentially set up Mystic Sanctuary by getting an island and getting another island and then getting a fetch land, so that next turn if I attack with my Primeval Titan, I can get another island and then fetch my Mystic Sanctuary and get any of my spells back from my graveyard, which I have very powerful spells in there. So this is kind of like, even if he answers what I'm doing, I still have more options moving forward to just be as resilient as possible versus this crazy deck. So I Animate Dead the Void Winnower here, just really putting the pressure on, making it difficult for him to do what he wants to do. If he has any removal that costs even amounts of mana, he can't cast it. And even without the Mimeoplasm lines, I am just kind of dominating this dude. So he plays Slimefoot and Squee. It's notable that creatures with even mana values, like this token, cannot block. So here I dredge Stinkweed because I have plenty of mana and I just want to fuel the graveyard more. So here I copy Gaia's Revenge and Exile Titania for the counters, and just smash in. And now I finally get the Lake of the Dead and an island, so I can do all the stuff. I can cast Archon next turn if I need to, and really just like even if he board wiped, it wouldn't matter. That's the situation we're in, and he agrees and wraps it up. So that was definitely an above average draw, but it feels nice to stomp the best deck in the format. So with this hand, it is not as strong as the last hand for sure. It has some decent tools in the matchup like Toxic Deluge and Thoughtseize. But one of the main issues is that Lake of the Dead is going to have to sack a swamp, and this is not a swamp, so I might just be down a land for a bit until I can figure something out. So Slimefoot and Squee goes ahead and plays the turn 1 bird, ramping out the turn 2 commander. I draw Frantic Search, and I go ahead and decide to just Thoughtseize on turn 1. I could have got a Surveil land and set up my turn, but decided to go ahead and go after him. And I thought about this for a while. I accidentally just skipped through it, but he had a pretty good hand. I ended up taking Lelia, but he had a variety of powerful cards. Abrupt Decay and Fatal Push, depending on what I draw, if I draw like Animate Dead, maybe Abrupt Decay is good, but those cards in general aren't that great versus me. And I didn't want to put Detective Phoenix in the graveyard, because this card tends to come back and with a vengeance. So I did not do that. And they did not have a land, notably, in that hand. They could not play their commander, but they top decked one, and it's a weird one. You have to sacrifice a creature in order to make any color, and then it does other things. But he's going to put the pressure on by playing the haste creature. And not much I can really do about this. And I draw Primeval Titan, which is very good. So I loot with Scan the Clouds. This is an adventure spell. I like this one a lot because it's a creature and a looter. And at first the deck ran a lot of like Merfolk looter type cards where they come into play, but they always die. And these cards you have to have a counter spell in order to deal with it. So I like it all in all. So I did not find the reanimation spell, but I go ahead and pitch Primeval Titan and Death Shadow. Death Shadow can be a strong threat if you're low on life, but also it's just 13 counters for Mimeoplasm. And there is a combo with Mimeoplasm involving Gaia's Revenge and Wonder that allows you to do 21 points of damage all at once. So that's the main reason that Death Shadow is in the deck. Again, I might do a deck tech at some point on this deck if people are interested at all. So trying to put on as much pressure as possible. Gets the 2 haste creatures swinging for 5 now. My hand's okay. I mean, it's got a board wipe. He's stuck on lands. So, but I decided to go ahead and cast Frantic Search first to see if I can come up with a reanimation spell for the future. And I did not, but I come up with some more lands, which is good for the Lake of the Dead. And we have Void Winnower and Jin-Gitaxias here. And I decided to Toxic Deluge, wiping the board. I'm only at 7 life, but they're stuck on lands. And this was kind of an odd play, I thought, because one of the potential things I was going to do is my hand isn't looking great. So I was potentially going to copy copy Jin-Gitaxias with the Mimeoplasm, but he just main phases Bowmasters, which is usually best to wait, and you do this in response to me trying to draw cards. Like if I decided to commit to the line of casting Mimeoplasm next turn, I'm dead if he casts this. There's nothing I can do. This is not an optional trigger, and I'm at 7 life, so the Bowmasters would in fact kill me. However, this player chose to do a main phase Bowmaster. I guess they just felt their aggression had been stopped, and they wanted to apply as much pressure as possible, but that was not the right call, I don't think, because it allows me to change what I do. Here I drew Animate Dead, which is probably one of the best draws in my deck, because with the Lake of the Dead and my mana situation, I do have to sack a lot of lands, but I can create 7 mana, and that allows me to do both. I can cast Animate Dead on Void Winnower, and I can also play Mimeoplasm at the same time. And there's a couple of different ways to play this out. One of the really cool things I like about Mimeoplasm that comes up sometimes is it functions as Graveyard Hate as well. So I'm obviously not going to copy the Gingitaxias. Prime time's usually your best bet, especially when I went down a bunch of lands. And then instead of giving it a bunch of counters with Gingitaxias, it's only 5. I would much rather just take this Detective Phoenix and make sure that there's no way that he can like jump one of these creatures, give it haste, and then finish me off with a lightning bolt or something like that. So that's like one of the worst case scenarios. So I decide to get Prime Time and exile the Phoenix. Here, I believe, again, I just get some Surveil lands. Get rid of Urborg. And get rid of Swamp. I don't need lands. I need action. I'm not in necessarily the greatest spot, but I'm still in a pretty good spot. And they agree. I guess they just never drew their land. The cards that I know about in their hand, they had 2 unknown cards, but they weren't useful here, and they were likely going to be dying very quickly. Who knows what I would have drawn next, but just wanted to showcase this video because this is considered to be the best deck in the format, and this did not feel very competitive, kind of just wrecked them. But let me know what you guys think about the video in the comments, and this is Raging Poo. I'll see you next time.